What does integral theory say about consciousness and its place in the universe? Integral theory by Ken Wilber assembles in one framework the disciplines of understanding the universe and the self, and proposes 5 principles for human flourishing, both at individual and collective levels. The goal of integral theory, like active inference, is to incorporate previous philosophical and scientific perspectives by recognizing that each perspective has validity in the context of the evolutionary or developmental stage, as well as local conditions within which they are manifesting. Human understanding of any phenomena must incorporate the 4 fundamental perspectives in order to be viewed integrally. Have a look at this quadrant.
I emphasize,
Each phenomena has an individual subjective, intersubjective, individual objective, and inter-objective viewpoint. At an anthropomorphic level, think of phenomenology, collective unconscious, anatomy, physical form, and societal functioning. Just like the nested active inference, the hierarchy of phenomena from the 4 perspectives encompasses its predecessors, i.e. it is a hierarchy. Words, thoughts, concepts, images, beliefs, and mental frameworks at the individual subjective, memes, trends, and culture at the intersubjective, cells, organs, and bodies at the individual objective, families, cities, nations, international committees at the inter-objective. With this in mind, we can explore the 5 principles that govern human flourishing. Growing up, which means muscle, brain, tissue growth. Waking up, which is growing the sensation of unity with our surroundings. Cleaning up, which is growing the light in our psychology. Open up, which is opening our doors of perception. And show up, which is action or active inference. First, what helps us reach higher levels of understanding? It is our intelligence. More specifically, the multiple intelligences we can develop, including cognitive, emotional, moral, kinesthetic, musical, aesthetic, and spiritual intelligences. This is called growing up. What is growing up? Growing up pertains to psychological, emotional, and interpersonal moral development. This includes understanding self-centric and ethnocentric, that is tribal or us versus them, perspectives. Embracing more inclusive, world-centric, and complex, cosmocentric ways of thinking and relating to others. It is our intellectual framework with which we interpret the world. It resembles grammar, which governs how we put words together, but cannot itself be seen by introspecting or looking within. Every person, including you, every person brought up in a particular culture ends up speaking that culture's language quite correctly, following its rules of grammar quite correctly. Similarly, the growing up path involves following a set of stages that lead to the development of, let's say, spiritual intelligence, which naturally occurs over time, for instance, childhood to adult development, but also requires active engagement. What is wake up? Wake up describes direct and immediate experiences, like the one you have right now. All of the world's great mystical wisdom or religious traditions had profound spiritual experiences of being one with ultimate reality or divinity, and attempted to convey ways for their followers to have similar waking up experiences. Now, spiritual intelligence is our intellectual approach to spirit or an ultimate reality. It is how we think about that reality, the concepts and symbols we use to represent it, and the ideas we form about it. It is our general worldview when it comes to religious or spiritual realities. Spiritual intelligence, or the spiritual talk, goes through stages of development, which is growing up, more mature, more complex, whatever. Waking up, which is this spiritual walk, does not necessarily undergo growth and presents the union of the self with all of existence, surroundings, and its divine ground beyond ego identifications. I like to call it a sensorial eruption, or the sensation of infinity. Waking up tends to be experienced with contemplative practices and meditations, including moving meditation. For example, exercise, martial arts, yoga, and Tai Chi. It is the revelation of the Buddhist concept of no self. There is no existence of the individual self, but rather consciousness is a fluid and interconnected web of relationships and phenomena. Waking up can be thought as training cognitive flexibility. I'll come back to that later. It can be a catalyst of intellectual growth. Nevertheless, waking up or experiencing an expanded attention requires resolving emotional and psychological aspects of growing up in order to be capable of integrating the newly experienced states of consciousness. Both paths are complementary for a complete spiritual engagement. For instance, after waking up, there might remain a need to surmount intellectual challenges that dissociate an individual from their everyday tasks. Sometimes seen in people who overemphasize spiritual practice.
Last time I used this machine, I didn't understand it. It did its thing automatically. That gave me a feeling of amazement.
This could also mean learning to integrate uncomfortable or unfamiliar elements of our experience. In other words, our psychological shadows. This process is called cleaning up. What is cleaning up? Cleanup refers to the process of addressing and resolving psychological, emotional, and relational issues and healing past traumas by integrating our personality's shadows. This is recognizing psychological and emotional habits that impact present behavioral reactions, relationships, and well-being. Theoretically, you can transform these patterns by cultivating empathy, forgiveness, and compassion towards oneself and others. This brings into your own conscious judgments the repressed shadow and allows its integration or acceptance. This process contributes to growing up and the interpretation of waking up. What is open up? Open up is a reminder to embrace new perspectives, ideas, and possibilities. It involves being receptive to diverse viewpoints and engaging in dialogue by cultivating a sense of curiosity. This is the door to the expansion of consciousness. Show up represents the integration of the previous principles into our daily life and relationships. It is the embodiment and expression of the insights, wisdoms, and values gained. Show up is about engaging fully in our personal and collective responsibilities, contributing to the well-being and transformation of society. Let's link each principle to a musical example. Before, I would like to remind you that the same mechanisms that encode suffering, such as neuroplasticity and epigenetics, can be harnessed for good, emphasizing human flourishing over pathology. Show up is active inference, where the inference is based on your growing up, cleaning up, waking up, and open up stages. Now, examples for each. Wake up. This is about listening or performing music while in a flow state. Grow up. This is practicing instruments, creating music, or semantic musical knowledge, that is history, biographies, or reasoning about music theory. Clean up is understanding the autobiographical memories that are evoked by music in you, analyzing lyrics as well. Open up is explore new music in terms of listening or playing or creating. Show up means share a musical experience with yourself and others.
Hello, in this video I compare a philosophy of everything and try to simplify it, and also make links to a philosophy of how the brain works. This is a second episode. The first episode was about how we could model social consciousness using neuroscience maths. The next episode combines the maths of the neuroscience and integral theory. exploring as well meditation. Make sure to subscribe and like to hear more about philosophy, music, science, and so on.